Pleasure to welcome you to the January 23rd, 2024 regular meeting of the Oshtemo Township Board. I will call this meeting to order. At this time, agenda item number 2, remote location identification. Given that all board members are present, that is, there is no one reporting remote location. Next, I invite you all to join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. At this time, I would welcome a member of this board to share a statement from our township mission, visions, and core values to center our conversations.
I guess that falls on me. Integrity. Decisions are made logically through the collection of evidence, facts, and public input.
Thank you, Trustee Chapman. Absolutely, it's our desire to act with integrity. At this time, I'm going to open up public comment on non-regular session items. So if there's anyone here with us that wishes to speak publicly on an item not on the agenda, I invite you to come to the nope, not you yet. Mr. Commissioner, it's not your turn.
You're on the agenda. I'm waiting.
Okay, very good. No, please, there is a 4-minute time limit on public comment.
I'll be much more.
And if you would please introduce yourself and provide your address if you see fit, you are not required.
My name is Pamela Cornolia. I lived at 5146 Green Meadow Road. I'm the president of the board at the Leisure Time Condominium Association and am representing them today. I would like to first thank the township for being part of the process in working towards a traffic calming solution for Green Meadow. Our board's first priority, of course, is the safety of our seniors as they cross Green Meadow Road and even as they walk on the sidewalk that you have graciously given us over this past couple of years. We continue to have lots of speeding down that road, and sometimes the speeding is so great that people lose their control and end up into our property, across the sidewalk, and so on and so forth. And so we have great concern about it. Part of our issue, of course, is that there's a curve on Green Meadow, and it also slightly goes uphill. So people can't see clearly past it. And in speeding, it has caused damage to a building and has certainly damaged our property on a number of occasions. But I also come to you today to talk about the children that live down the street. We have a large complex, actually has 192 units in it, called Canterbury House. And when I talked to their management and asked them about their units, how many children they had in that particular facility, they said that there was probably over 80% in that 192 units, which would make it about 153 at a low. That's a lot of children. And they walk down our street. Some of them don't walk on our street. They still walk in the road. And then we also have buses continuously going up and down that road. And so it's a great concern to us as people that live in the community for these children. We also have people that are families that walk up and down that street pushing strollers and just people in general using the sidewalks frequently. So we are concerned. We are concerned about having a calming method on that particular street. And we are especially looking for you. There's a meeting that's going to be at the let me see, it's at the RCKC Neighborhood Safety Meeting, and I think that you will have somebody that's there or representing you there, and we would appreciate your support at that meeting. Scott Jeffries is our task force chair to this committee. And he will be there and present, and he did want me to tell you, he wasn't able to come today because of the flu, but he did want me to let you know that Supervisor Bell has agreed to participate in the meeting to help them move to a solution, to the very solutions that are needed. So I thank you for your time, and I hope you will support us in our effort to calm down Green Meadow so that our children are safe and so that we as a group are safe. Thank you.
Thank you for being present today and providing that comment about the traffic calming in that neighborhood. It's been a long conversation, but feels like we've made some steps forward. Next on our, before I close public comment, do we have anyone else with us today in the public wishing to make comment on a non-agenda item? None, I will move to agenda item number 6, Commissioner, Public Official Updates. And for the Township Board, at the request of Clerk Farmer at our last meeting, I think this is a great idea, we'll be adding public official updates to our meetings in regular. It happens to be State of the State this week, so I had a chance to talk to Christine and Sean, so I'm sorry, Senator McCann and Representative Morris, so they're not available, but we will reach out in order to have those that represent Oshtemo come and tell us what's going on, Mr. Commissioner.
Good evening, Board. I'm Dale DeLue, your County Commissioner, and I live at 7077 North Star in Oshtemo Township. And I am meeting with Mr. Jeffries on Thursday in reference to this situation. I forgot my cheat sheet, but I have about 3 things I just wanted to update you on from the County Board. And I'm sure you're all aware that the new Robert Pratt Justice Center opened up last month after many months of delay and $95 million. But it's a beautiful building and serving the public well. For the citizens and the board members, actually, this is the last week if someone would like to apply for the opioid task force. Kalamazoo County is anticipating receiving up to $15 million in opioid settlement money. They want to make sure that that money is spent in a responsible way. So they're asking, this task force is going to be made up of a broad spectrum of the community, but it is open to the public, and you can apply online at the Kalamazoo County website. And lastly, we passed the budget back in October. But I think one of the biggest things everybody's excited about on the board, and you'll be hearing more about, and there's no specific details yet, but we anticipate joining a program. It's between the city, county, state, and a nonprofit called RPI Medical Debt, and we're attempting to wipe out $89 million worth of medical debt in Kalamazoo County, which, as you all know, the people that can least afford it are the ones affected the most. And the best thing about it, although we don't have details yet, the people that may have medical debt, that meet the income threshold, they don't have to do anything. It's going to be one of those calls that the police department's going to receive, because they're going to get a letter and telling them their medical debt is wiped out, and they're not going to believe it, and they're going to think it's a scam. But that's actually true from what we've been told. So as time goes on, we'll have more details, and I will keep you filled in. And I apologize for not making more of your meetings. We meet on Tuesdays as well. And in 2024, the Tuesdays you meet and we don't, I will be here. So, thank you. Questions?
So just to clarify, if anyone wants to apply for the opioid task force, that application closes this week? The 27th, okay. So if anyone on this body has capacity, certainly, we had representation there, that would be outstanding. And the medical debt program is, I'm actually thrilled to hear it's going to be a smooth process for those that it's going to benefit, and look forward to learning more about that in the future. Really creative stuff, I think. Seeing no other public officials here to provide updates, we will move to agenda item number 7, discussion of the Oshtemo Trash Day. And Clerk Farmer, I guess, do you want to start
So earlier this year, it was brought.
Not just me.
Earlier this year, our maintenance director brought to our attention, actually, no, let me back up from there. Earlier this year in the spring, it was brought to our attention by the Kalamazoo County Sheriff's Department that dump day was getting out of control and cars were lining up on M43. And so at that time, a few of us were called to come here and figure out how to deal with that.
My AVGs, you put yourself in that place. I went back and read it.
I'm sorry?
It's on your AVGs
What is?
to evaluate dump day.
Right, because of the situation that I'm talking about. So, it was decided then that we needed to figure out a way to reorganize this, and we didn't really have anyone assigned to do so. And at the time, Maintenance Director Greg Fountain stepped up and said, I want to evaluate what's happening, and that included beginning to check IDs for residency, which had not been done in years, and get a complete count of people and where they live so that we could see a heat map of who we're actually serving through our dump day. And he continued to do that for quite a few dump days, and it was data that we have not had access to in a long time. And luckily, we have a GIS coordinator now who was able to take that data, create some really good maps for us. We're able to see when the busiest times were and where people lived. Surprisingly, we were not actually servicing very many people outside of Oshtemo. There were a couple, though. There was a handful. Also, what we discovered is that with the dump day, how we currently have it, on 10 Saturdays in a year, we were really only servicing about 10% of our population at a cost of $55,000. At that time, we looked into restructuring our dump day. I spent time contacting junk removal services. We were informed that the waste services from Best Way and Republic would not have the capacity. They had been asked the same question by other municipalities. They do not have the capacity to provide service of picking up large trash removal at everyone's residence. And after speaking with Comstock in Texas Township, I found out that they were actually using the service of College Hunks. And I contacted them, and they did an evaluation of our residency, how it's spread out over the township, how many people we had. And while it might have worked well for Comstock and Texas Township, our increased size would have cost about $55,000 for one pickup in the year. So it was the cost of what 10 days were getting us for people bringing it here. So again, we still had some safety issues that needed to be addressed, and that was right on the front of Maintenance Director Greg Fountain's mind, as it should have been. He said he needed assistance to work these dump days and make sure that people slowed down. There's absolutely no really traffic calming measures other than to have people stop and start filling out this sheet, which that alone was actually very helpful. It gave people pause early on in the line, and it kept it a little more organized. But still, what we had happening was we had our staff, and we have one gentleman who we contract separately at about $80 a dump day, where he comes and helps sort things and manage traffic, which really he's not able to do. He's helping people get stuff out of the back of their cars and trucks, which was never supposed to be something that we were doing. It's incredibly dangerous. Yes, huge safety concern. Cars were driving around and cutting the line, which was also extremely dangerous for people who were just standing out there. And so Greg and his staff really got that under control. But then we had to look at the implications of that moving forward, and that meant 3 maintenance staff here on Saturdays And for them to manage their time so that we weren't, blowing our budgets in overtime, that would mean that they would have to figure out times during the week when they wouldn't be present. And that also is incredibly difficult to manage. And none of that actually addressed the real safety concerns. I mean, they were seeing it out there in their safety vests, but they're really open there, just exposed to cars driving around our parking lot, especially folks that don't know that dump day is happening. They're still entering at all the different driveways, all the different entrances. So we decided to call Bestway, who is our current service provider, for our trash service and for dump day. They send out dump trucks, usually at least 2 per dump day. So I called them and I said, we need to figure out a way to mitigate the safety issues here. I mean, ultimately, we'd love to see this off of township property so that we don't have to have staff on it on the weekend and it's still accessible for residents. And over the next 6 or 8 weeks, they worked with us to create this program where we would pay for folks to take their stuff over to the transfer station on Miller Road. That's the basic description of what would be happening. That would provide quite a few benefits to us because, again, it would eliminate these issues that we're having. And on the bright side for residents, it would allow them to take their trash, those large amounts of junk, anytime during the year, in theory. It wouldn't be limited to just Saturdays only, which would also then possibly open it up to serve more people in the community that are paying the taxes that provide the service. And so they were actually great. Brandy from Bestway, she was fantastic. She came up with this certificate system where they would actually print those and give them to us, and folks would come here on a monthly basis and get their ticket. And they can use it any day in that month, and they would take it out there, and it would also be up to 4 yards of trash per visit, which is pretty comparable to what we are allowing here. I mean, we don't have any limit here. So for folks that were coming back and forth multiple times in one day, this could be an issue for them. They would have to spread it out. I mean, we have this conversation without really asking the real question, which is, why do so many people have so much junk in their houses?
Because we provide a convenient way for them to dispose of it.
Right. And why is it that same 10% all year? That's the other question. But this would possibly open it up to more, but that's a huge change. And if we decided to go this way, we would have to talk about maybe a few more limitations, maybe, because we also have to think about the cost that is associated with this. But if we, limited it to 4 yards per visit, and we still kept it at about 10 visits a year, and we would be able to sort of, manage the cost. But it would be a huge change for residents. This is a service, dump day is a service that people look forward to every year. They call us in January and they want the schedule right away so that they can mark it on their calendars. And so this would be big. We'd have to put our communication team on it and make sure that we let folks know that this change was coming and what it will mean for them. And, so that would be a big decision that we have to make. But at this point, that's really what's before us, is we identified that there's a problem with how we're currently doing it, and that was how we worked through with possible options for the future.
Hold on,
Okay.
Mr. Ford. Mr. Chapman, I saw you first.
Yeah, another township that I have property in provides a punch card. And you have 4 yards. You have, I think they provide 6 punches. They have a separate one for large things, TV, computer, refrigerator, things like that. And so they limit it that way. So it actually is quite convenient because you can go when you want to the dump. And you have to do it yourself, which was the untold rule here, but
But it's exactly what we had, you had
Yeah.
to bring it here. You had to
Yeah.
at least get it this far, and now it would be Miller Road, so.
So I think that's a great idea. I think it's just the communication part is the difficult thing. I did not actually know that that existed in my other township until I got a certificate in the mail that I looked at, and it came with my tax bill, which was perfect time to do it.
And we had even talked about maybe mailing, I mean, because there's a significant cost with that as well, but maybe mailing the initial one and letting folks know, you know, that to get your next one, you have to come into the township and actually pick it up, and we would maintain that list, but again, Best Way would provide the certificates, and they would keep those, and that's how they'd charge us, ultimately.
And they track the residents, right? So they would be legitimate Oshtemo residents.
Yeah, I really, really like this idea. I have never participated in dump day, although I have had opportunities where I have had things I needed to bring to dump day, but it just wasn't convenient for me. And I have a friend that has a commercial dumpster that said, hey, if you need to throw something in there, which, I mean, I really like the idea, because even the 10% that are using it, I mean, come on, you're wasting, I don't know how many, an hour at least of your day, waiting in line, and then the whole thing. I mean, this just, you go when it's convenient for you.
And there are two things that I forgot to mention, and I should have. One, at the very beginning of this, we did have we had a resident call with the request that we offer dump day on at least one day that was not a Saturday. You know, and again, staffing just wasn't going to make that available, plus we couldn't do it in our parking lot during business hours, and Best Way doesn't do anything with garbage removal on Sundays, so we really just couldn't even accommodate that. This would. The other thing I want to say is that from the very, very beginning, the first time Greg Fountain said, this is a safety hazard, it was Claire who said, then get it off of our property. And we didn't know what options would be available, right, how we would manage that. So that was actually, I don't want to miss out on that to say, Claire had that idea from the beginning.
Well, this
No.
probably started when we were a township of 12,000 people.
Right.
And now we're a township of 24,000 people. So it's time to do, or it's time to at least look at other options.
No, and I agree. I think it's an excellent idea, and I appreciate Dusty for doing the legwork, Claire for the idea. But Dusty
And
for
Greg,
doing the
who
legwork.
really did most of it with
No,
the data
to
To
collection.
get it, yeah, to get it to this point, but I guess I'm curious what the cost is, what are we paying, what are we gonna pay Best Way to have?
Yeah,
it?
so she gave us, it was an approximate cost of being like $30 a yard and multiplying that. I mean, we're trying to keep it right around $55,000 still. But the first time, if we choose to move forward with it, we will have to keep an eye on that. And they will be sending us monthly invoices with the names of the people who used it and the actual charge.
People participate.
We absolutely could. We absolutely could.
Trustee Ford?
Yeah, I think you answered the question. It was about, is it like pay per use then? They would be invoicing us based on who showed up? And how do we reconcile that, I guess?
Well, that's actually how they do it now. We just don't have the names involved. So after we have a dump day event, they go back, figure out how much trash was brought here, and then they invoice us for that, so.
They invoice us based on trash because it's all collected in one day, but now they're gonna be invoicing us based on visits?
Yeah, so on those
So
certificates.
we don't have an idea, I don't think, we won't have a record of who asked to go visit, so I guess how do we?
No, we will. We will. They have to come here to get their certificate, and so we'll be managing, making sure that, you know, they're only doing the one per month or whatever, so that it can be spread out. Or again, we can make those rules whatever we want them to be.
No, it's not about making a rule,
but
it was
so
about
we will-
having that audit ability. of-
Yep, so we will have that, so we have the list of who requested a certificate, which can be reconciled with the invoice that says these are the people who actually showed up, and this is how much they brought. So,
Yeah, I think it sounds interesting. For me, just as a personal preference, I would rather just have one single day a year where they come and get it from my curb, but.
I have one question on the certificates, Dusty. How can you, is a process for that? Can you come in and get a certificate same day, or?
Yeah, they would just
Okay.
come to the counter, ask for one, and,
So just come
They
during
go,
normal
give it to
business
them.
hours and, okay.
yeah. I mean, that's the idea, but
Or,
again.
I mean, we may be able to get into this, I mean, using technology to deliver those too.
Yeah,
you know,
best way
like-
should be able to
Well,
digitize this
and-
process.
I don't think they are, I want to be very clear on that. The certificates is their idea, and this is what their management has decided they're willing to do. So I don't know that I don't know that doing an electronic version would work for their needs, because they have designed the certificates, and they've put it on the paper that they want it on. Like, this is really their process in being flexible to
What are
get dump day
the
on
hours
Friday.
of that transfer station?
They're online. I mean, they have more hours than what we provide for dump day.
So then they're committed to being staffed though, to assist these folks, or what's that experience supposed to be like when you pull up with a load of junk?
So they offer that already. Anybody who has service with them can come in and take their junk to them.
I see.
So they have that process already figured out. They have their own Linda at their window who manages all of it. Like, she seems to really be the boss when it comes down to it. And she measures how much trash that they've brought and takes the payment and all that, so.
Gotcha, okay.
You said previously, our numbers have approximately stayed the same, about 10% of our citizens.
Since
So-
we started measuring.
Since
Yeah.
we started measuring, so
In about May.
one potential idea, and you'd have to say this right up front, there will be a limited number of certificates, and that could be one way to control the budget, to
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
make sure
that's
that it doesn't go.
10 would be the most that we would do. and
Well, I'm saying
Then
over.
we'd have to watch it, so.
Well, but the problem with that is if every citizen went, which we know they don't, but if, you would still have a pretty much unlimited budget. But if you said that we will give you up to 10, but for the whole community, we're only gonna issue X number.
I see what
Then
you're
we would
saying.
have a control on the possibility of excessive charge.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what I could see happening, because if some people didn't know we had this, and all of a sudden now they're told, if everybody went,
Mm-hmm.
you could see a number go up, and we could actually be spending more. So one way would be to put a cap, we're gonna offer X amount, the cap for the total community is going to be this number. It's just something to think about, I know it's a
Oh,
complication.
no, those
that-
are things we're thinking about. Like I said, there's not really a set structure here. We would have to, again, if this board decided that was a decision, to switch over to something like this, we would have to flesh out those details before we even started, so that residents know exactly what to expect.
So the Miller Road transfer station is Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 5 p.m., and Saturday, 8 to noon. So essentially, significantly more hours of availability to utilize it than is offered currently at the township.
Yeah, if I could jump
Oh,
in with
yeah,
a
trustee
couple
Sakara.
comments. I've never used the dump day to bring stuff either. I hired a company to come and grab all of the junk that I had and had assembled. I have used a shred day, though, twice, and then I've gone to my credit union for shred day. I did have the opportunity to work, I think, 3 or 4 of them this summer, or this fall, anyway, once I was on the board up here. And it is fascinating. I think there were some ways that they could have streamlined them, and I shared that with Greg and his team. And there are some things that you do need to watch out for, but I think there are some ways that it could be a little bit better. One thing I would be worried about is now we would be telling people to drive across town, other municipalities, to take it to the transfer station versus just maybe coming a half mile from their house here with limited interactions with other vehicles and other people. The other one being that, suddenly, if we limit the number now, even if you never used it, you will suddenly feel that somebody took away something that you were paying taxes for. Maybe you never used it because there's only 10% of the people being allowed to use it. And so I'm hesitant to get too far behind. So I like the idea that we're evaluating it, because I can remember 20-some years ago when I was first on this board, that was one of the first things I questioned, why are we spending, and I think at that time it was $10,000 for that one, like, why do people have so much trash at their house, you know, why aren't they having it taken away? But as a kind of a weird little twist, actually last week at our thought leaders meeting, this actually came up. The ability to bring your trash, because we were looking at ways to interact with the community and how the community, how can you get into the different groups in the community? And a resident brought up the fact that, oh, well, dump day, you know, there's people lined up over here, they're all Oshtemo people, if we want to interact with them or get ideas or hand out stuff or whatever, there's a captive audience, because they're going to be there. They're not going to get out of line when they see you coming with something to give them. So it's like, yeah, okay. And then, of course, I had to mention that we were thinking of discontinuing that, which a couple of residents were like, oh, no, they didn't care for
It's
that.
not discontinue, it's change.
Well, change, yeah. So, I mean, I think there are some ways that maybe we can streamline it. I'd be a little worried about suddenly changing it. I'd like to make things easier and not have our employees be at risk. If we need more, you know, people involved in volunteering, you know, we have board members who maybe can take one of the dump days and help out, you know, just as, you know, come out and donate your time to making it work better. But yeah, it's one of those things that's just always been there, and when in line, people are asking me, well, when's the next one, you know, and I'm on my phone telling them, and so it is used, and people are interested in it, and it's not something that I was interested in, but there were a lot of people that did.
Well, and this is not addressing shred day or leaf drop either, so this is specific to trash days.
Although I will say, we are investigating leaf drop-off off the township property, but then that would only just be down on
That's-
9th Street,
And
possibly.
that's twice a year.
Yeah. But Shred Day, no, Shred Day is still here, guys. That one's so great, I mean,
It was just hard to get in, the line for the first one was down in M43
Oh,
for
yeah.
first
Last
shred day. I
shred day, I
drove by,
worked
just drove
hardly-
by
there
and
was hardly
waited, came to a different one.
well, and that's what happens, is they bring it all in the spring, because I only do 2 a year, May and September. And, matter of fact, I need to check to see if I got that scheduled this year. I try to do it like at the end of the previous year, anyhow. Yeah, it took some years to become popular, but then when it did, everybody's there in May, and then, you know, they don't care about September so much.
Well, after tax day, and you go through all your files, and you're like, oh, when I got this, I can get rid of this stuff, and so it's a good time to clear out
Yeah.
your files.
And that's a really inexpensive, that costs us less than $1,000 to offer that service, so.
Well,
That's a really good one.
are there any other comments on this topic?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that I think it addresses the safety issue mostly, and I do believe it's probably more convenient with hours, and, I mean, there's people that have to work every Saturday. I do agree that we probably will need to cap it, so being a taxpayer, I don't utilize our dump day, but we do maybe once every couple of months go to the transfer station. I don't want to sit out here for an hour on the edge of M43. I'll just drive to the transfer station and pay for it. That's okay, I don't mind. And so I do think we'll have a pickup in, oh, I can go get a coupon before I go, okay, kind of thing, so.
All right, well, based on this conversation, I think, Dusty, maybe we should bring back in February a plan with some more details, and then discussion.
Yeah.
Okay.
If not February, March. It's getting pretty busy.
All right, well, let's work on that,
Yeah.
and maybe even at that meeting, we can have Greg Fountain come and talk about his perception of how that service is going. Okay, next on our agenda, thank you for that discussion and feedback. We have agenda item number 8. Ms. Horner is here to talk about the sanitary sewer maintenance update.
A lot of discussion about waste tonight.
She's got it, everybody's gotta get rid of it.
This is a different one. John, I'm remembering I have to share, I just don't know how to do that, so let me figure it
Is
out.
it not signed in? Oh, it is, very clearly.
I did it? Okay.
No, exactly.
All right. What is in front of you tonight is the proposed sanitary sewer cleaning and televising agreement for the 2024. Oh, jeez. All right, is this good enough? Yeah, I really wanted these pictures to be as big as I could make them. Let me try again, let me try again. Share screen. Share my screen. Go for the whole thing. Good, okay. So tonight in front of you, the memo explains that we're talking about the 2024 work related to cleaning and televising part of our existing sanitary sewer system. But I did bring along some pictures of past versions of this so that everybody can see how important it is. So for 2024, some of the highlights are that the Taplin Group has been the service provider we've been using in the past. They are holding their bid prices, and they have for quite a few years. So I think this is a good process for them. They moved through multiple townships in the county, and so they have continued to hold those prices. Prine and Newhoff puts together the service area, so we do 10% again of our existing sanitary sewer system every year. And once they isolate what that area would be, they look at the depths of the sewer and then can estimate it based on the attachment of unit prices. So we will get to the pictures. I just want to first say that the state made a huge effort in 2013 through 2017 to offer very, very great grants. They were like an 80 or 90% grant for communities to inventory their storm and sanitary sewer systems, because we knew based on the age of these systems, and a lot of them when they were installed in the 70s, that they were going to be reaching the time when they needed some more routine maintenance or some more capital maintenance or eventually replacement. And so it was really a way for the state to support communities being able to phase in some of this work so that rates weren't going to be hit crazy, and boards could make some responsible decisions about how to plan this out over a 20-year capital improvement plan. So Oshtemo in particular, we have a pretty young sewer system, if you think about it like that. So it's in really good condition. So we are being very proactive by doing this work. Through that SAW grant, we did the entire system, and then now we're doing 10% each year moving forward so that we can keep up with it. So I just wanted to highlight that for the board as well as the public, that we are, still looking at our existing sewer system. We want to make sure that we can cover that work that needs to be done to maintain it, operate it, make sure we don't have any disasters. So that is something the Public Works Department still monitors regularly. So now on to the fun part. So in 2023 and 2022, I pulled the highlights from the reviews that Prine and Newhoff did. So for example, in 2023, 121 pipes were cleaned. They're cleaned first with a jet rotor, so they put pressure through them to make sure that anything that was sitting at the bottom moves downstream, and then the video is a little bit more clear. So they clean them first and then they televise them. So again, of that 10% of our system, it was just under 25,000 feet. They use a rating scale of 1 to 5 1 being good and 5 being bad, 4 being like, you know, we need to plan for this the next year, but it's not going to fail tomorrow. 5 were the ones we took care of the very first year because we knew that there could be a failure, especially if they were in the road, they would create a sinkhole or something like that. So in 2023, there was 1 pipe that was a rating of a 4, and the rest of them were in the 1 to 3 category. It says no pipes were identified with any root infiltration. There is, I have a picture of one that has, well, actually it's in 2022. I have a picture of what root infiltration looks like. There was one where they said there was a fine root, which to me means there's like 1 root sticking through the pipe, and it's just negligible. It just happens in the pipes, and it's nothing that's going to cause them to fail or back up or anything like that. So it was negligible. So then we'll get on to our pictures here. So this is an example of a rating of a 4. I tried to change the contrast a little bit and add an arrow so you can see where there's a crack in the sewer pipe. That's the little arch.
Can you tell me
At the
what the
top.
material is? Is this aluminum?
Plastic.
Okay, plastic.
Plastic, yep. So this was, you know, depending on how the pipe was installed, it says a fractured pipe as it entered a manhole. So, you know, maybe we call it driving home, but maybe they pushed the pipe a little too far and put too much force on it and it cracked. So again, since it's by a manhole, there's more opportunity for some bigger failures. You know, you'd start to have some sediment fall through and could eventually have a sinkhole or something as that material comes through that crack. So they rated it a 4. It's something then the next year we would plan on tuck pointing or replacing, something like that. Awesome, right? Okay.
Anna, with a repair like that, that requires like full excavation, right? Like you can't do any patching and gluing and fixing from above, right?
Nope.
Okay.
That's a good question. There is a lot of the communities I previously worked for, what they were doing when they had older systems, they could do something called manhole lining. And you'll hear a lot about the cities doing that with their pipes. They're much older. But that is basically, like, if you think of surgery, it's a non-invasive way of coating your sewer. So they stand in the manhole with like a whole spacesuit on, and there's a big truck that's got the material coming through a machine, and they are able to spray the entire pipe. And I could bring some pictures for that too next time if we're gonna continue sanitary sewer show and tell. Okay, so these are gonna get increasingly better so I can captivate your attention. So this is where a poorly installed lead was just cut into a pipe, and there wasn't actually a section of the main cut out and what we call a Y put in. So it's an actual fitting that you would be able to fit the sewer lead into. So at the top, you can see kind of the white pipe is the sewer lead. So that's what goes from the main in the road to somebody's house. And again, if you're doing this if you're installing these Ys at the time of construction, you would just cut the pipe, add the Y, keep going. If you have to retrofit one and install it later, again, ideally you cut out a piece of pipe, not just poke a hole in it. Because again, you can just see where there's a cracked piece of main down here, and that's gonna be really susceptible to failure.
Is there liability or responsibility of wherever this was at, of the individuals who cut in inappropriately?
That's a good question. I'll give you a better example of when there is very easy follow-up with the responsible party. In these cases, we are not going back and trying to track that down. It was probably, who knows when it was done. So we just want to correct it and improve the system. We haven't seen them frequently enough to make it an area of concern, but when it's private utilities, it's very easy to tell.
And now that we've mapped them, we have a baseline, so if we see it again, we could perhaps hold somebody more financially responsible.
Yeah, if we, and I have seen this where some contractors, they start to get a bad reputation because they do this kind of stuff, or they don't make their joints tight enough, and so you don't want to be on that fire list, And some communities do like a pre-qualification, of certain contractors that are better than others. So, yep. Okay, the next one's a little bit harder to see, but you can definitely see the big piece of concrete that's stuck there. But this is again where a Y was cut in, and it was actually cut in correctly, so they cut out the main, and then they used something called a Fernco. It's kind of like a rubber boot that would go from one size pipe to another size pipe and create a sealed, they can create a sealed joint. And so it's when pipe doesn't fit together, so you wouldn't be able to, you know, fit the two pieces together or the right sizes. If the material changes or something like that, you can use this Fernco. So it was just the way the Fernco was installed. It says that there is it basically offset the joint of the pipe, and then a rock or concrete or something around the exterior of the pipe was able to get in. And so that's where you could potentially have a blockage. And again, we do the cleaning first. So if we can't get this out of the way with the cleaning, then that's something we have to actually go in, excavate, and take care of. So these are then 2022s. So same kind of area. We did 23,000 feet of pipe. 2 had a rating of 2, and the rest were a 1. This is an example of more roots. So when we say fine roots, they're just little baby hairs that are coming through, but it is crazy what roots will do to a sewer pipe because they love the environment. So they will get in those cracks and they will clog up a sewer. And then this kind of speaks to your question, Trustee Chapman, is that this was a utility penetration that we found. This yellow pipe is a gas main. And so we were able to go right to the party and require them, I think they actually paid the city to fix the work, and so the city just did a work order and billed them out for it. But it does happen that you just have somebody who, you know, isn't following the misdig marks, you know, where the utilities are marked out, or they're not hand digging and they're just boring and, you know, for whatever reason. And then you can see how sewer works. It's sitting right there. So those were some fun visuals. I don't know if anybody has any more questions.
Thank you, Anna. Is there any other questions?
You didn't bring any videos, though?
I didn't. Different day.
Well,
Honestly, you can see those on YouTube, and I do not recommend.
what do you do with your time, Trustee?
It's crazy.
I think that, so this was something we wanted to bring forward to remember the board that as we continue to pursue extending our sewer system, maintenance is a part of that work as well. This is in the blue line budget for this expense. Do
Correct.
we need a motion to approve it, Attorney Porter?
Nope.
Just information.
Yep. Mhm.
This is
Yep.
just information.
It's, yeah, per the purchasing policy, if it's over 50,000, we require an
to bring it
update to the board, but it's all in the budget.
But this is already in the budget, so it doesn't require any,
Formal action.
right, I was gonna say cartwheel, but formal action.
So I do have
do
and
it.
perhaps this is a naive question, but is the cost spread out to all the people who participate in the sanitary sewers, or is it spread across the entire community?
This work is covered by the surcharge that is charged to existing sewer customers. And that was all part of that SAW grant we did a big financial audit and understanding of, again, how do we phase that out over a lot of years, and we have a very robust sewer CIP, and then we can look at those rates.
Right, so essentially this work pays for itself, or the fees pay for the work to maintain the system.
But as more people join, the rates will go up, right, for the maintenance, obviously, because we're going to have more. But will the rate per customer remain roughly the same, or?
Yeah, so from our first surcharge increase after the SAW grant, it has stayed steady. So it kind of offsets more users, more people paying for it to adjust with the costs. Again, we have a pretty young sewer system, and so part of that capital improvement plan starts to look at some of our lift stations, which are much more expensive capital maintenance items, if you will. But we tried to keep that surcharge as steady as we could and plan that work very methodically so that we wouldn't be doing big increases, because the city also has rates that they look at to operate and maintain and treat the sewage. And so they look at those rates, but our surcharge from Oshtemo has stayed consistent for the SAW grant work.
Thank you, Anna. Next, we have item 9 on the consent agenda. Is there anyone, member of the board, that wishes to pull anything from the consent agenda for further discussion? If not, I would be ready for a motion.
Move to adopt the consent agenda.
Second.
A motion by trustee Ford and a second by trustee Chapman to accept the, or to adopt, thank you, I'm like stumbling over here, adopt the consent agenda. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor say aye. Aye. No? Motion carries 7-0. Unanimous. Item number 10, a budget amendment. This was provided to you. This is a perfect example of, and Anna's going to walk us through this in a little more detail, but this came to our awareness today that we needed to address it. And so this is a perfect example of how agendas can get modified literally at the last minute. We added this today, I think, at 3:30. So Anna, if you would discuss this budget amendment, please.
Yeah, so hopefully everybody's familiar with when we approved the contract with MDOT for this work. It was at the, I think, one of the last meetings of 2023. Just kind of the timing, we didn't do the budget amendment with it because we were waiting for the 2024 budget. And so this is coming forward as MDOT notified us that they cannot award their project actually without this being paid and the other, like the road commissions paying a part and whatnot. So they're collecting all those fees up front. The memo does outline that we are reallocating the funds within the capital outlay line of the general fund that's dedicated to public works. And we use these specific project codes, so NMKLAV is non-motorized KL Avenue. And so then we can track our overall project budgets. And it was originally in the budget for repair and maintenance of non-motorized facilities on major streets. And we did also receive our draft asset management plan for our non-motorized facilities, and we can get the work done this year that's outlined in that, as well as pay for this work. So I don't think it will be completed in 2024, so I just wanted to make sure everybody was aware of that. But MDOT does require the deposit up front. So they're trying to get rolling, and their contractor wants to order materials. So that project will begin shortly, and the invoice was also provided.
So just to be clear, this is to extend the shared use path down KL underneath the bridge.
Correct.
This is our portion of that.
Correct.
And that will happen in conjunction when the bridge work is done.
Correct.
And it's such a cool thing. So, does anyone have any questions for Anna regarding this budget amendment?
There are no questions. I will make a motion to approve the budget amendment to allocate funds for the KL Avenue non-motorized path in the amount of $91,700 in accordance with our contract with Michigan Department of Transportation.
I'll second that.
Motion by trustee Cole, a second by trustee Sikora. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 7-0 unanimous. Thank you. And yay! Good stuff, good stuff. It's all gonna be worth it. Agenda item number 11, you remember at our last board meeting, Suzanne Schultz was here and reviewed our transportation and mobility ordinance with you. In your packet was the red line And then included in that was also a clean copy so that you could review and if you had any questions. And Suzanne is with us online.
Love it.
She was going to be our trial.
Hold on, ask her to speak.
You want me to speak? Hello. You want me to try it again?
Oh, that was better.
We're gonna be like we were before, where they can speak or you can speak, but you can't speak at the same time. Okay?
I can put it in the message.
Turn her on to speak, please. Go ahead, Suzanne.
You want me to talk? Is it better?
Yes, you are clear.
Okay. Oh no. Anyway, I'm here if you have any questions. So maybe I don't need to talk at all if there aren't any questions.
We don't have any questions.
Our question is how to use the
I
technology.
would say Mr. Ford doesn't have any questions. Okay, Suzanne. So we have to take turns talking back and forth because the Zoom is still not integrating well with our new technology. So if you would please, you've been welcomed and reminded that you were here to present on the ordinance, and they have the red line copy and the clean copy. So thank you for being with us. I'm wondering, and I'm going to step back. Do you have anything you'd like to share with the board before we go into questions?
I don't think I have anything to add to the presentation that we just had. I mean, I think we covered a lot of ground when we discussed the ordinance, and really, I'm just on in case you have any questions. If you've had an additional moment to review the ordinance and had anything else that you were wondering about or any other discussions. And I would just add that this is a stopgap. I mean, this is now, we've set the foundation for the ordinance going forward as we continue the master plan work. And as we go forward and do that work with the non-motorized plan and the complete streets and access management and all that, and we have discussions with the community about the different, we're calling them place types. So we're really envisioning, based on the recent discussion with the thought leaders that we have and staff, that there's been so much great planning work that's already been done in Oshtemo. We're really, really going to build off of that. And what that does for us is allows us to have the opportunity to work with the community and all of you to be able to identify what building types and street types are appropriate in different locations throughout the township. So that there will be some finessing and some refinement of the ordinance in front of you as we continue on our master plan journey and really drilling down into what characterizes different areas of the township. And we're actually going to do a pattern book that calibrates those different design concepts for different areas of the township. So this is the beginning, and it sets a really great foundation for us to build from. And now the master plan work will be layered on top of it. Eventually, then we'll come back to you with a revised ordinance as well.
And do any members of the board have a question they'd like to point at Suzanne directly? They all think you did such a swimming job the first time around. There are no questions.
Excellent.
I do have a statement, though. And Suzanne, I have to compliment you. The choice of words is wonderful. When I look at the red line, I am quite surprised by some of the language that was previously used. And so I'm very appreciative of the edits that were made and the choice of words. So kudos and thank you.
Did you hear that, Suzanne? Suzanne?
I did. Yep, that's good. And I would also, well, we can give a nod to Ann too. Ann had an eagle eye and resulted in a couple changes to the ordinance as well. Well.
I do want to let the board know that we did send the draft out to the developer working group that was invited to review this. I did send it to the fire department. We did provide it to the road commission. So we have tried to share this and make sure we get as much feedback as we can. And like Suzanne said, it's a stopgap, so we have an opportunity to continue to improve it. But we have tried to cover a lot of ground and a lot of people in this.
Did we receive any feedback from those, or how long has it been since it was sent?
We have not received any feedback. I think the developer group has had it for at least 8 weeks. I think the road commission has had it for maybe a little bit longer than that. Towards the end of the year, we met with them and sent them the version we had at the time, and we were really asking them to focus in one section. They did say they were going to provide us comments, so I will follow up with them that they do that before second reading if they have any. But maybe they think it's great too.
So I have kind of a question, but not directly related. I mean, it is directly related. The last time this was brought up, I asked about the statement within the ordinance that said sidewalks everywhere. And the response was, we'll override that with the master plan. So my question is, not what it actually states, but I guess I don't understand why I should approve, at least on my part, an ordinance that we know we're going to change. That's my question.
Sorry. I don't think anybody's made that final decision. So it's, this sort of establishes current policy. And I think what the people working on this ordinance were thinking is, as you work through that master plan and the planning commission brings information forward to you, if this board decides to move in a different direction, maybe to minimize the amount of non-motorized in, say, the rural areas, then that's something that can be used as a basis for modifying your existing policies. So your existing master plan, your existing policies would say sidewalks everywhere, both sides. As you go through the master plan, if you rethink that and you modify that, you'll have the master plan as a basis upon which to make changes internally to your ordinances, and then as this ordinance gets folded into your ordinances that will be amended because of your new master plan, then this would change.
Thank you. So to clarify, if I don't agree with that, I should say no.
If you want to see a change made now, my comment would be, you don't really have a master plan upon which to base that change. I would wait until you have a master plan that would say, we've rethought this process. We're going to change our principles or our policies based on a revised master plan. Currently, sidewalks on both sides, that's consistent with your current planning documents. So your zoning and your text of your ordinances should follow your master plan. Right now, your master plan basically says sidewalks everywhere all the time. Some board members here are saying, let's rethink that. But that should come out of your planning documents. So I think what they're saying is, wait until the planning process goes through, and once you've worked through that process, if you rethink, reconsider, and change your master plan, then it's time to change your ordinances to fit the new master plan.
Are you saying the master plan pretty much trumps then everything
Master
else?
plan,
And
yeah, master
So you
plan
change the
controls.
master plan, it changes.
Right, that would be like saying, well, I don't agree with the zoning, so I'm going to change it. And my response would be, no, you don't change the zoning first, you change the master plan first. That's what they're waiting for, is this new master plan to go through.
But there's no guarantee that the master plan will revert the wording in this ordinance.
That's correct. It may,
Okay,
you
that's all
may
I
come
needed.
through and say, no, we're going to stick with this.
So I think what Attorney Porter is bringing up is an overall discussion that I have been requesting for the last 2 years with this board, not with the current supervisor. But my request is that we have a board that has never been actively involved in master planning, which is a very comprehensive process. Now, we've talked about it more in the last half of last year than ever before. But I think that we haven't made those connections with this board about why we have a master plan to begin with. And it is a requirement from the state of Michigan, and it's required that we have to review it every 5 years. It doesn't mean you have to change it every 5 years, but you need to review it because the importance of it is that that document is supposed to inform every decision we make. And when we start finding gaps for things that aren't even addressed in the master plan that we're making decisions on, or things that we're making decisions on that are related to the master plan and we're going against it, all of that is what opens us up to litigation because we are not communicating with the community about our intentions in the future of the township. And that's the real importance, and we've never really had that sort of workshop with this group. And I mean, I look forward to that continued discussion, but that's why all of our ordinances that we have should be a direct reflection of what's already in the master plan.
So outside of the 5-year review, we could choose to look at a specific portion of the master plan at any time and change it.
You could.
Which,
yes.
and we
So
have
if like
done.
this came up, like Claire is saying, that, oh, we've got, somebody building a subdivision or whatever out here, and right now, it says they are required to have sidewalks. We could, if that's not in our master plan, visit that at that moment and say, okay, we're gonna change that, which,
So
right?
it's
Am
kind
I-
of a bigger process than that, because there's a lot of, you have to have public input, you have to have public noticing. But here's the thing, and we have done that. So 2018, we did Go Green Oshtemo.
Right.
That was only a piece of our master plan. The 2011 sewer portion of our master plan, that was done as a separate piece. But the difference is now this year it is comprehensive. This is a comprehensive master plan that's supposed to be grabbing all of those previous plans and either changing them or incorporating them, right? And just really streamlining that process because we are all over the place, right? And there are a lot of reasons for that. It's not as if anybody wasn't doing their job. We didn't have the professional staff to do it, quite frankly. I mean, that's bottom line. And the work that was done with the people who were here was good work, and they put a lot of time into it, but it was impossible to streamline it all at once. So here we are, and it's a very good thing.
Yeah, to answer your direct question, yes, you can modify your master plan, but you have to go through all the single steps that we're already going through for the entire plan. So really, timing-wise, it makes sense to wait until the entire process is completed.
So would it then make sense to wait on the ordinance?
No, I want to remind the board that the reason for this ordinance is we were not happy as a community the way developers were approaching private roads in the township, and that they were also running up against the requirements for building to road commission standards. So we have a moratorium in place, building private roads in the township. So we took on the revision of the road ordinance so that we could, as in our planning department and our public works department, and along with our consultant, Progressive A&E, and our developers who have seen it, the road commission that's seen it, it's been out for public review, so that we would get closer to having the kind of road standards to share with the developers, so when they were making decisions about what they were gonna build, they had clear guidelines on what we wanted.
Right. I would not hold this ordinance up simply because a small segment of it dealing with
Sidewalks.
mobility
Yeah.
is really once they got started on the ordinance, the primary focus was roads. The primary focus was on creating an ordinance that would allow development based upon urban road standards that the road commission doesn't allow. That was the primary focus, and the need for this to be in place is as part of the interim. The non-motorized aspect of it was simply pulled in to make it a little more comprehensive. It wasn't intended to necessarily rewrite any of the provisions of our non-motorized plan currently. But no, we desperately need this ordinance. You need it in conjunction with the mixed-use district that's coming forward. Otherwise, it simply does not work.
Otherwise, we have to extend the moratorium on building private roads, and then we send a signal to developers that they have to continue to wait for us in order to get started on their projects.
Which opens us up to more litigation.
Yes.
I think it's just also important to remind ourselves that ordinances and things that this body does, they're living documents and they are subject to change through process by this board at basically any time. We could repeal it, replace it, amend it, however we want, and I think that's important that we keep that in mind because we should be always looking to.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I just have a hard time approving something I know I'd like changed already.
That's fair. I can appreciate that.
Does anyone have any other questions for Suzanne?
And to accept for first reading the Transportation and Mobility Ordinance and set for second reading on February 6, 2024.
Second.
A motion by trustee Cole and a second by trustee Chapman. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Noes?
Aye.
Motion carries, 6 yeas and 1 nay. Thank you, Suzanne. You might be gone, it looks like. Okay, at this time, we're at an item, and Claire, I respect, first of all, your detailed reading of the ordinance. I mean, seriously, that's pretty impressive.
I always read the entire packet.
Good for
Otherwise,
you.
I have no grounds to say anything.
At this time, we will open the floor to public comment. Oh, yeah, please.
I'm sorry, we have a one comment.
Commissioner DeLue.
No, he said it's not as a commissioner. Hello, stranger in the audience.
Oh,
There we
hello.
go.
Hello, resident DeLue.
How are you? I hate to bring this back up, but you were talking about dump day. And I'm here as a citizen of Oshtemo to talk about dump day. A couple things. First of all, I would hate to be the employee in the office who's going to have to now hand out hundreds of certificates. Somebody's going to have to do that.
She's got the time.
Oh. And secondly, having utilized both the Oshtemo dump day and the transfer station, I find the dump days to be very convenient. I find the transfer station to be, it's worth the price, but I hate to use this term, but you can't get there from here. It is not easy. You gotta really, it's one of those things like, I really want to get rid of this to drive to the transfer station. And I think you know, if the public, you might get some blowback on this, and I think you'll probably actually save money, because it's just my personal opinion, choosing between the two. You're not gonna have nearly the amount of people wanting to go to the transfer station as you would coming to Oshtemo dump days, but might be a cost savings. I think you're gonna get some disgruntled citizens, because again, it's just for the convenience. And you can wait that one day a month, or some days you have, 2 days a month to bring your trash, and you can wait in line. And to me, that's actually more convenient than going to the transfer station. So, thank you.
Says the retired gentleman.
Well, part-time.
No, thanks for that feedback. And there will be more conversations, so you can put those meetings on your calendar too. All right, at this time, we are at item number 13, board member comments and committee updates. I will start with, I'll go to,
I'd like to go. Volunteer, I volunteer.
okay, okay, I usually go outside in, but you go, Dusty.
Actually, you've been going right down the line lately.
No, well, I decided left to right, anyway, go ahead.
So I did have another item about trash service, and I do want to clarify, this is not a cost savings. This is not a change that's being suggested to save any money. The expectation is that we are still going to spend the same amount. But again, it would offer up service other than on Saturdays, and it would reduce the need to have safety precautions for maintenance staff here on the property. But the other piece that I wanted to say about that is that with that discussion about pickup service at each residence, that would actually really limit the ability for people to participate, because people in apartment complexes would no longer have the opportunity to get rid of large trash hauls. Some HOA developments would prevent having the trash at the curb to be picked up. And we also have gated communities here who would not be able to participate in the service. And all of those people would still be paying the taxes for the service. And we will have excluded all of them. Where now, although they're not using it, they still have the opportunity to use it as it's currently planned out here on the township property. All right, excuse me. CCTA, KCTA, so Central County Transportation Authority and Kalamazoo County Transportation Authority. Interestingly enough, I think I'm on my third appointment to the KCTA, and I think this is the first time I've been asked to interview, and I have an interview for this appointment from the county tomorrow. So fingers crossed, but I'm still on the CCTA anyway, and those meetings are joint meetings. So I did want to say that, excuse me, I mentioned microtransit in the past, and microtransit is a new service that will be offered by the transit authorities to help in that, that sort of last mile at the end of bus line service. Microtransit's going to be operated similar to an Uber or Lyft style service, but it is not going to be to pick up in one place in the county and transport you to another place in the county. It will be within specific zones, and we happen to be in one of those zones because we are going to lose our bus service here to the township hall. It's going to end over at 9th Street, and people can use microtransit to get the rest of the way here. That process, we have appointed, or we did appoint a company, or we appointed the bid or whatever, they won the bid, and that is expected to still roll out in April, and we will get a full presentation from Sean McBride, the Executive Director of Metro Transit. No, we do not. Clerks Association, so I have meetings this week and next to discuss site supervisor training for the early voting stations. I will actually be conducting 2 days of that training in early February, so I can't wait to find out what that's going to be, because we don't have a complete understanding of how early voting will run. We've got a lot of it figured out, but we still are waiting for some equipment, and we're waiting for the actual early voting electronic poll book to be developed and pushed out, and learn how that will be used. So it's, be kind to your clerk friends, because this has been a rough time implementing Prop 2, which is a great service for voters, but it has turned into a lot of work. And I want to say that last year we rolled out permanent ballot status for voters. They can elect to be on the permanent ballot list, and with that comes the constitutional right to never have to fill out an application again, except the first election that really is being applied to that is a presidential primary, where we have to know which ballot to send people. So we're not asking them to fill out another application, but we do have to send out ballot selection forms. And there are some folks who have forgotten what happened 4 years ago and what happened 4 years before that, is that every presidential primary election, you have to select a Republican or a Democratic ballot. One time, you got to select a Libertarian ballot, but they didn't keep those numbers pumped up, so it's back to Democrat and Republican. It is different from our August primaries, where those parties are on one ballot and you just select the column you want to vote in. And so, some folks are a little apprehensive about saying which party they want to vote for, but I want to be very clear. You don't have to vote in a primary for the party you're most associated with. You can vote in either party's primary here in Michigan. I do want to say that we found out that that information is FOIA-able from the state of Michigan, not at the local level. So if somebody really wanted to dig into it and find out which primary someone voted in, they could request those lists farther down the line. They usually do that to contact you about giving money to their party, not for any sort of malicious intent. But I do want to say that the laws, how they've changed, have really increased the work for my staff and myself. And I want to say I appreciate that we have, I was able to get a full-time employee in my office. She does half records management, half elections, although this time of year she's only doing elections. And for the foreseeable future, she will only be doing elections. Because of the over 3,000 people that we have on the permanent ballot list, we've got another 3,000 to 4,000 on the permanent absentee ballot list. The change in the law is required that if we don't get back the ballot selection form from those folks on the permanent ballot list, we have to contact them by calling them, emailing them, and texting them. That is now in the law. And so we have 1,000 voters so far who have not sent back their ballot selection form. We have not begun calling or contacting them yet, because we're still dealing with the hundreds who sent back the ballot selection form with nothing chosen. And so we have to contact them all. You guys should have seen it. We had a whole phone bank situation going on last week and this week. It's been really nice to connect with people who, come to find out, do not trust us. They think that we're, some nefarious group trying to figure out their political affiliation. I assure you that we are not, but that is what my office has been up to, and that is what we will be doing. The state has given us grace until February 13th to make all these communications happen. It's very unlikely that we will hit that goal. So, and that is across the state, and much larger jurisdictions have it a lot harder than we do right now. So again, give kind words to your clerk friends if you know them across the state. And that is all I have. Oh, the last thing is that I will be site supervisor for early voting on February 19th and 20th. I will likely be quite late to our board meeting on the 20th. So. I'll be at the Expo Center both of those days. Where are you going? Got it. Treasurer Bushka.
I just have a quick question. I don't need to go out of order. Your CCTA and KCTA comment about the pullback from the buses, will that eventually change any tax district for precincts? I'm asking because you know your precincts.
Yep, so that is entirely up to this board. So before a millage goes on a ballot, we have the opportunity to include or exclude precincts from that millage. Right now, we have half of our precincts in, half of our precincts out. I will say, part of getting precinct 9 included did involve us getting service to this township hall, but more importantly, that was service to Walmart and Meijer. Service to this township hall was really a bonus, and it was something that I had asked for 8 years, but the participation from riders isn't justifying the bus coming down here, even from 9th Street at this point. So the that supplement from microtransit, though, will still be paid into precinct 9, or, you know, that service will be in precinct 9, so it's not an entire loss out of that. But again, that's entirely up to this board. We decide, and then it's only those precincts who vote in that millage.
Thank you.
Anybody else want to nominate themselves? All right, go ahead, Treasurer Bushka.
Then I will keep going. So I did at the last meeting state that I would get online payment percentages versus in payment or in person or mail payments. So for January 1 through December 31, 12% of our online 12% of our payments were from online, it's about 6.8 million out of 58 million. So that is an increase from last year. I believe it was 8.6, so I will take a 4% slide up going indefinitely. I'd be happy with that. As for our summer and winter taxes this year, out of the 54.25 million, we've collected 31.5. So we are only actually, and I'm kind of surprised, 58% collection. So we're gonna have a busy 4 weeks.
Yeah, you are.
Just to be clear on those numbers, though, that's total taxes that your office will disperse to the county and the other entities that we collect taxes for, that those funds do not, that level of funds do not remain in the township.
Correct. The 54.25, we would probably get less than a fifth of. Everything else goes to county, schools, transit, libraries, continued education facilities, so on and so forth.
Yeah, thank you, Claire.
A question on that, if I may. Because I have not paid online, is there a service fee associated with that? Or do we pay that service fee? Do we lose, or are they responsible for a credit card fee, et cetera?
So we pay service fees to have the service available, but there is online fees associated for the resident or the business. It's 2.75% if credit card or PayPal or Apple Pay or Google Pay or anything like that is used. However, if you use a routing and account number, it's $1.95.
We don't absorb those costs, they do,
Correct,
for convenience charge.
correct.
To be clear, we cannot pay that by law.
All right, good information. Trustee Ford.
The planning commission's been hard at work at the mixed-use district ordinance language. The last commission meeting, we spent a good chunk of the time watching my kids terrorize us, but also discussing specifically density in that area. And the conversation was focused specifically on the pending project at the golf course. So if you have strong concerns or feelings about density and what you want to see over there, I'd appreciate you giving me a call so that I can make sure your input's captured at the planning commission.
Thank you, Zach. Trustee Sikora?
Yes, thank you. I'm also going to be working elections. The early voting, I'll be a site chair for 4 days out at the Portage Parks and Rec facility, and so I'm looking forward to that. So it'll be interesting and exciting, and it'll be fun. Couple committee reports. Parks Committee, we met last week. We approved 2 applications for special events at the Township Park. August 3rd and 4th, there will be the Michigan Junior State Disc Golf Championship, and on September 14th, the Kalamazoo Ladies Classic will be held there. And we also reviewed and revised the 2024 Parks Department goals. Friends of the Parks also met last week. We had a nice discussion with Attorney Porter about the bylaws, got some questions answered, and also some marching orders that we need to work on our bylaws, and so we'll be tackling that later in the year. 2024 Music in the Park, the planning subcommittee is going to meet next week to get that going. And then I also see that the Historical Society is planning a 20th year anniversary and open house at the Drake Farmstead, and that's tentatively scheduled for May 19th. And then we also had, attended the Thought Leader Committee meeting last week, which I don't know how much information to really share about that committee, but just to comment, we have an agenda and we have a list of things that we're going through. And I thought there were very good discussions and active participation by everybody on the several different items, but a lot of work and a lot of good
Do you want to
discussion.
describe what the Thought Leader Committee is, because everybody may not know?
Oh, that's a good one. I'll let you describe that for us.
All right. Do you have anything else? I mean, I'll add that to my.
No, I'm set. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Neil. Trustee Cole? Trustee Chapman?
I also was at the Parks and Rec. We had a wonderful presentation on Fruit Belt. It was very beautifully laid out for us, which inspired me to go cross-country skiing on Fruit Belt. And only on 3 occasions did we nearly get hit by snowmobiles.
They're not even supposed to be down there.
I had a conversation with one individual on that, and it was actually a very good conversation.
Snowmobiler?
Yeah, I stopped in the middle of the path. So there was a good conversation, and we'll share it with you offline. But that is being used. Will have to be addressed.
Yeah, we need to post those signs if they're not.
It is signed.
Okay.
I verified that, and they saw the sign.
And everybody follows the rules, right? No, you may not.
Taking the gator,
Do you have anything else, Trustee Chapman, before we move on?
Nothing else at this time.
All right, well, I want to thank everyone for being here this evening. It's good to see you all. 2024 is off to a good start at Township Hall. It is, there's some exciting stuff coming down the pathway that probably will get to this board before the end of the year, significant projects. Very excited to be digging in a little deeper with the planning department, trying to support them, mostly just as a cheerleader because it's not really my skill wheelhouse, but we're seeing an average of 4 to 6 submissions for projects to our planning department per round. And there's only 2 of them that have to do all of that review right now. We are engaging some outside support, professional support as well, and Anna and Jim have also been supporting that team. But big things coming in 2024 for Oshtemo, I think. Big shout out to our maintenance department over the big snow event we had. Our maintenance department is two full-time and 1 half-time person. In addition to their 40-hour Monday through Friday week, during that snow event, our full-time staff put in just about another 40 hours of snow removal themselves that weekend, plus the part-time person was here too. So, not an insignificant amount of work. But they did a really good job, and we appreciate that. I know I checked in on the fire department on Saturday to see how the crew was doing, how many calls they were getting, and I didn't realize that Greg and his team were going to be here all weekend, making sure everything was open. Learning curve for me, but they keep things moving for the township and the residents during those events. Another exciting thing, I don't have a lot of details, but I'm hoping that Senator McCann, who helped spearhead some of the state funding, but the new interchange at 131 is a go. It's not only funded, which we already knew, but it's into the planning phase. And that should get constructed in 2025, so it's gonna advance quickly. I may hopefully get an opportunity to invite our MDOT representative here. I also learned that the 131 I-94 interchange, the new interchange at 131 Douglas, the bridge over Kale Avenue, and I think Stadium Drive, those projects are all gonna overlap. So, uh-huh. We are going to be boxed into our township, so.
Just the way I like it. The thought leader committee that Neil is describing, he's the board representative. So as a part of our master plan, we've invited members of various boards, members of the development community, residents, members from just a wide swath of some service industries, such as United Way, Disability Network, Southwest Michigan First is at the table, and that group really is kind of charged with, you know, they're going to be fed the information that comes out of internal work groups and community engagement, but adding a lens, a broader lens to our master plan work. So it's a great team of people, but the internal work on the master plan is firing up significantly. Suzanne and her team from Progressive A&E are leading that. So don't be surprised very soon, actually, because we're going to be, there's a survey out right now. So it's on the township website. It's also on the township Facebook page. I don't know if it made it to next door. I can't remember. On one of the surveys that we're doing is regarding the economic health and needs and desires of the residents of the township. So I encourage you to take that survey, share it on your social media or with residents that you know. That survey will be open through the end of February is our anticipation. So there's, it's going to be 2024 for the master plan is going to be busy as we anticipate a completed plan in the spring of 2025. So with that being said, if anyone else has any final items, I will call this meeting adjourned. 7 minutes before our other meeting will start.
We would have been sitting here a